Billionaire mocked his ex-wife at the New Year's party for being alone. Then her triplets ran out and called her mommy. Still alone, Ophelia? No date for New Year's? That is sad. Zachary Brennan's voice cut across the garden like a knife. His new wife Vanessa laughed beside him, champagne glass glinting in the firelight. The entire family gathering fell silent. All eyes turned to watch. Ophelia Hart stood by the fire pit, her phone in her hands, her face calm despite the cruelty aimed at her. She looked tired. Dark circles shadowed her brown eyes. Her long hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a cream sweater. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. I mean, really. Zach continued, louder now, playing to his audience. How old are you now? 35. The clock is ticking. Most women your age at least have a boyfriend, kids, something, but you have got nothing. You are exactly where you were 3 years ago, alone, going nowhere. Zach, stop, his mother Ruth said sharply from across the garden. But Zach could not stop. 3 years of avoiding this woman, 3 years of convincing himself he had made the right choice when he divorced her. 3 years of building his new identity as a self-made billionaire. It all poured out in cruel, cutting words. I feel bad for you. I really do, Zach said, shaking his head with mock sympathy. You had your chance. You were married to me. You could have been part of something big, but you wanted to stay small. And now look at you, still teaching second grade in Brooklyn, still living in that tiny apartment, still completely alone, while I have everything. He gestured at himself, at Vanessa in her designer dress, at the Rolex on his wrist that cost more than most people's yearly salary. Ophelia looked at her phone one more time. Then she looked directly at Zach. Her voice was quiet but steady. My children will be here in 5 minutes. Zach laughed. It was a harsh, mocking sound that echoed off the stone walls of his mother's garden. He looked around at his family, at his cousins, at everyone watching this scene unfold. Did you hear that? Zach said, still laughing. Ophelia says she has children. She is making up stories now. This is so sad. Vanessa joined in the laughter. Carmen, you do not have to lie. It is okay to be single. You do not need to be embarrassed. I am not lying, Ophelia said calmly. She checked her watch. They will be here in 4 minutes. The garden became completely silent. No one moved. Zach stood by the fire pit, still smiling, certain this was just desperate fiction from a woman who could not accept how far he had risen while she stayed stuck in place. 4 minutes passed. The silence stretched. People shifted uncomfortably. Zach's brother Keith looked at the ground. His sister Wendy had her hand over her mouth. His father Martin stood near the house, watching with hard, serious eyes. Then the side gate of the garden opened. 3 small boys tumbled through. They were about 3 years old, dressed in matching navy coats and little boots. The moment they saw Ophelia, their faces lit up with pure joy. Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. All 3 shouted it at once. They ran across the frost-covered grass, their small legs pumping, their arms outstretched. They crashed into Ophelia's legs and she dropped to her knees, catching all 3 of them in her arms. Hi, my loves, Ophelia said, her voice thick with emotion. Did you have fun with Aunt Raquel? We stayed up past midnight, one boy announced proudly. We had sparkling juice. Another added, I saw fireworks. The third said, his voice full of wonder. An older woman, Aunt Raquel, walked through the gate behind them carrying a large bag. She smiled at the scene of Ophelia hugging the boys. But no one was looking at Raquel. Every single person in that garden was staring at the 3 boys. At their faces, they had bright green eyes, the exact same shade as Zachary Brennan's eyes. They had his nose, sharp and straight. They had his chin, strong and defined, and when they smiled, deep dimples appeared in both cheeks, the same dimples that appeared when Zach smiled. The resemblance was not subtle. It was not questionable. It was absolute and undeniable. Vanessa made a strangled sound. The champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the stone patio. She stared at the children, then at Zach, then back at the children. Zach. Her voice came out high and shaky. Those kids look exactly like you. Exactly. Who are they? Zach could not speak. His throat had closed. His heart hammered against his ribs. His hands went numb. The beer bottle he had been holding fell to the grass. Ruth, Zach's mother, walked slowly toward Ophelia and the boys. Her hand was over her mouth. Tears were already forming in her eyes. She stopped a few feet away, staring at the three small faces looking up at her. Ophelia, Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. Are these my grandchildren? Ophelia stood slowly. She kept the boys close to her, one hand on a small shoulder, the other holding a tiny hand. She looked at Ruth, then at Martin, then at the entire family gathered in stunned silence. Then she looked directly at Zach. Yes, Ophelia said clearly, these are your grandchildren. This is Carter, Brooks, and Hayes. They are 3.5 years old. Ruth made a sound like a wounded animal. She dropped to her knees on the cold ground in front of the boys. Tears streamed down her face. But before we dive into how one man's pride cost him everything that truly mattered, I need you to do something. Comment below and tell me where you are watching from and what time it is. And if stories about consequences, redemption, and second chances resonate with you, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you are going to want to see how this unfolds. Now let me take you back to where this all began. 24 hours earlier, New Year's Eve. The Peninsula Hotel in Manhattan. The champagne bubbles caught the light from 1,000 crystal chandeliers. Zachary Brennan held his phone at the perfect angle, making sure the Rolex on his wrist was visible in the frame. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, illuminating the Manhattan skyline. Make sure you can see my watch in this picture, Zach said to the photographer he had hired for the morning. His wife, Vanessa, stood beside him in a silver sequined gown that probably cost $15,000. Her smile was practiced and perfect. She had that look down to a science, the look that said wealth, beauty, success. They took 5 pictures together, different angles, different poses. Zach reviewed each one on the camera's display screen with the critical eye of someone who understood that image was everything. He selected the best photo and immediately posted it to his social media accounts, all of them. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. His fingers moved quickly across the screen as he typed a caption. New Year, same blessings. Grateful for my incredible wife and the empire we are building together. Here is to another year of winning. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag power couple. Hashtag Peninsula New York. He hit post. Within seconds, the notifications started rolling in. Likes, comments, heart emojis, fire emojis. People he barely knew telling him how amazing his life looked. Zach smiled. This was exactly what he wanted. This was the life he had built. That is a good picture, Vanessa said, looking over his shoulder at his phone. We look perfect. We are perfect, Zach replied, and he believed it. At 37 years old, Zachary Brennan had everything he had ever dreamed of. He had made his first million in cryptocurrency 5 years ago when he saw the market shifting and invested aggressively. He took that million and multiplied it through real estate investments in Brooklyn and Queens, buying properties in neighborhoods right before they gentrified. Then came the tech startup, a platform that connected freelance workers with short-term gigs. It went public 2 years ago and made him obscenely wealthy. Forbes estimated his net worth at $340 million. He had the penthouse in Midtown Manhattan. $15 million for 4,000 square feet and a view that made visitors gasp. He had the cars, the Bentley, the Porsche in the garage that he almost never drove but liked knowing he owned. He had the watches, plural, a collection worth more than most people's houses. And he had Vanessa, 29 years old, beautiful, successful in her own right. She worked in marketing for a major fashion brand and made $300,000 a year. More importantly, she understood the game. She understood that who you were seen with mattered, that where you vacationed mattered, that what you wore and drove and posted mattered. We should leave soon, Vanessa said, checking her own phone. Your mother said to come early. Zach nodded. He walked to the bathroom and checked his reflection one more time. He was tall, 6'2". He worked out 5 days a week with a personal trainer to maintain the lean, strong physique that looked good in expensive suits. His brown hair was cut perfectly, styled with just enough product to look effortless. His green eyes were sharp and clear. He looked successful. He looked like a winner, and that mattered more than almost anything. They left the hotel and got into Zach's Bentley. Black, sleek, the kind of car that made people turn their heads when it drove past. Zach drove through the streets of Manhattan, then merged onto I-95 heading north toward Connecticut. It was New Year's Day. The sun was bright despite the cold. Other cars filled the highway. Families heading to gatherings. People visiting relatives. The normal rhythm of a holiday. My mother always goes overboard for these family things, Zach said as he drove. There will be too much food. Too many people. Everyone asking too many questions about work. I think it is nice, Vanessa said. She was scrolling through her own social media feed, double-tapping photos, leaving quick comments. Family is important. Sure, Zach replied absently. But family had always been complicated for Zachary Brennan. He loved his parents. Of course he did. But they reminded him of everything he used to be, everything he had worked so hard to leave behind. His father Martin had been a postal worker for 35 years. His mother Ruth had been a nurse for 40 years before Zach's money allowed her to retire. They grew up in Queens in a small house with one bathroom and thin walls. Zach remembered wearing his cousin's hand-me-down clothes to school. He remembered his mother clipping coupons every Sunday. He remembered the shame of being the poor kid. He got into NYU on a full scholarship, worked 3 jobs to pay for everything the scholarship did not cover, studied finance and computer science, graduated with honors and a burning determination to never be poor again, to never feel that shame again. And he did it. He made it. He became everything he dreamed of becoming. But his parents still lived simply. His mother still clipped coupons even though Zach had bought her a house worth $2 million. His father still wore the same watch he had worn for 20 years, even though Zach had tried to buy him a Rolex. They did not understand the importance of image, of status, of showing the world you had made it. They also did not understand why he divorced Ophelia. Zach's jaw tightened just thinking about her. Ophelia Hart, his first wife. Sweet, quiet, boring Ophelia who taught 2nd grade in Brooklyn and thought. A nice evening was homemade pasta and a bottle of wine under $30. He married her when he was 29 and still building his wealth. Back when he thought love and compatibility mattered more than ambition and drive. They were married for 5 years. 5 years of Ophelia being content with their small apartment, content with simple pleasures, content with staying exactly where they were. She had no hunger, no desire to be more, to do more, to have more, and she reminded him constantly of who he used to be. The poor kid from Queens who proposed with a $300 ring because it was all he could afford. The guy who thought happiness was a walk in the park and a pizza on Friday night. When his company went public and the money really started flowing, Zach looked at Ophelia and saw everything he wanted to forget. So he left. Filed for divorce 2 weeks after the IPO. Had his lawyers tie her up in negotiations for 8 months until she finally settled for far less than she deserved just to escape the process. 3 years ago. He divorced her 3 years ago. Married Vanessa 3 months after the divorce was finalized. He had won. He had everything. And Ophelia had nothing. The Bentley pulled up to his mother's house in Greenwich at 12:40 in the afternoon. Cars lined the circular driveway. His sister Wendy's Mercedes. His brother Keith's Audi. Various cousins and their families. The house was beautiful. A sprawling colonial with white columns and black shutters. Zach had bought it for his parents 5 years ago. His mother cried when he gave her the keys. His father shook his hand and said thank you, but Zach saw something in his eyes, something that looked almost like sadness. Ruth opened the door before they could knock. She was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short. She wore a sensible navy dress and low heels. She smiled when she saw Zach, but the smile did not quite reach her eyes. "You are late," Ruth said. "We already did the countdown. We were at the peninsula," Zach said, as if that explained and excused everything. Ruth responded, that sound she made when she disapproved of something but did not want to start an argument. She hugged Zach, then hugged Vanessa, then stepped aside to let them into the house. Inside, the house buzzed with family. Zach's father Martin sat in his leather recliner watching a football game replay. He was 64 years old. Retired now. He had been a postal worker for 35 years. Rain, snow, heat. He delivered the mail. Reliable, steady, serious. "Happy New Year, son," Martin said when Zach walked in. "Happy New Year, Dad," Zach replied. Martin looked at him for a long moment. That look Zach had known his whole life. The look that said his father was measuring him, assessing him, deciding if he was living up to the man he was supposed to be. Zach looked away first. He always did. His sister Wendy appeared from the kitchen. She was 34 years old, a physical therapist, married with 2 kids. She lived in Stamford in a nice but not extravagant house. She worked hard, raised her children, seemed happy with a life Zach would have found suffocating. "Hey, big brother," Wendy said. She hugged him, but there was something stiff in the embrace. "Hey," Zach replied. "Where are the kids?" "In the garden with Keith's kids, hiding Easter eggs." She paused. "I mean New Year's. Sorry, we did Easter egg hunts in the spring. I am tired. My brain is scrambled. It is fine," Zach said, but Wendy was looking at him strangely. Something was off. He could feel it. There was tension in the house that had not been there at Thanksgiving, an undercurrent of something unsaid. "What is wrong?" Zach asked. "Nothing," Wendy said quickly. Too quickly. "Nothing is wrong. I am just tired." She walked back toward the kitchen before Zach could press further. Vanessa had already joined a group of cousins in the living room. They were drinking wine and talking about their New Year's Eve celebrations, comparing notes on where they went, what they wore, what they did when the clock struck midnight. Zach grabbed a beer from the cooler in the kitchen and walked toward the back of the house where the garden was. The door was open despite the January cold. People were bundled in coats, standing around the fire pit that Martin had built into the stone patio. The garden was Ruth's pride and joy. Even in winter it was beautiful. Evergreen shrubs, a stone fountain in the center, careful landscaping that looked expensive but natural. Zach stepped outside. His brother Keith stood near the fire with his wife. Keith was 32. An accountant, practical, cautious, everything Zach was not. "Zach," Keith said with a nod. "Keith," Zach replied. The conversation felt stilted, awkward. Keith kept glancing toward the far side of the garden, where a group of people stood talking. Zach followed his gaze and froze. Ophelia was there. She stood near a table with drinks and appetizers, talking to one of Zach's cousins. She wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater. Her long dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, thin, like she had not been sleeping well, like life had worn her down. "What is she doing here?" Zach asked sharply. Keith looked uncomfortable. Mom invited her. "Why?" Keith shrugged. "Because Mom loves her. Because Ophelia was part of this family for 5 years. Because unlike you, Mom did not just throw her away when she was not convenient anymore." The words landed like a slap. "Watch it," Zach said quietly. Keith met his eyes. "Or what? You will divorce me too?" He walked away before Zach could respond, left him standing alone near the fire pit with anger rising hot in his chest. Vanessa appeared at his elbow. "Is that her? Is that Ophelia?" "Yeah," Zach said tersely. Vanessa studied Ophelia from across the garden. "She is so plain." "Exactly," Zach muttered. "Exactly." For the next hour, Zach drank beer and held court with his cousins. He talked about his investments, about the real estate market, about his company's expansion plans, about the yacht he was considering purchasing, 50 feet, fully staffed. He would keep it in the Hamptons. People listened. They asked questions. They seemed impressed. And Zach felt that familiar warm glow of being admired, of being envied, of winning. But his eyes kept drifting back to Ophelia. She stayed on the opposite side of the garden, talked quietly with his mother and sister. She checked her phone frequently, typed messages, put it away, checked it again a few minutes later. What was she doing? Who was she texting? And why did his mother keep inviting her to family events when they had been divorced for 3 years? By 2 in the morning, most of the extended family had left. Only the immediate family remained. Ruth suggested they move outside to the fire pit. It was cold but clear. The stars were visible beyond the light pollution from the city. Everyone bundled in coats and went outside. Someone brought out thermoses of hot chocolate. Martin added more wood to the fire. The flames leaped and crackled, sending sparks into the dark sky. Zach stood near the fire with Vanessa beside him. His parents sat in chairs. Wendy and her husband, Keith and his wife, a few cousins who had stayed late, and Ophelia, still there, still checking her phone, Something about seeing her there, in his family's space, acting like she still belonged, ignited something ugly in Zach. The beer and bourbon had lowered his inhibitions. The audience of his family made him want to perform, to show them all that he had been right to leave her, that he had won. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. Still alone, Ophelia? No date for New Year's? That is sad. The conversation around the fire pit stopped. Everyone turned to look. Ophelia's hands stilled on her phone. She looked up. Her face was carefully neutral, calm, but he saw something flash in her eyes. Pain, or maybe anger. I am not alone, Ophelia said quietly. Zach laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. Really? I do not see anyone. Same as always. Just you and your phone. What are you doing? Texting your cat? Some people shifted uncomfortably. Wendy said his name. Zach. A warning. But Zach could not stop. 3 years of telling himself he made the right choice. 3 years of avoiding her. 3 years of building this new life. It all poured out. Actually, Zach continued. How old are you now? 34? 35? The clock is ticking. Most women your age at least have a boyfriend, kids, something. But you have got nothing. You are exactly where you were 3 years ago. Alone, going nowhere. Zach, stop it, his mother said. Her voice was sharp and angry, but Zach was on a roll now. Vanessa was laughing beside him. His cousins were watching. He felt powerful. I feel bad for you. I really do. You had your chance. You were married to me. You could have been part of something big, but you wanted to stay small. And now, look at you, still teaching second grade in Brooklyn, still living in that tiny apartment, still completely alone. While I have everything, he gestured at Vanessa, at his Rolex, at the Bentley visible in the driveway beyond the garden. Ophelia looked at him for a long moment. Then she checked her phone one more time. My children will be here in 5 minutes, Ophelia said calmly. Zach laughed so hard he almost spilled his drink. He looked around at everyone. His laughter echoed off the stone walls. Did you hear that? He said between laughs. Ophelia says she has children. She is making up stories now. This is so sad. Vanessa joined in. Ophelia, you do not have to lie. It is okay to be single. You do not need to be embarrassed. I am not lying, Ophelia said. Her voice was steady, clear. She looked at her watch. They will be here in 4 minutes. Zach kept laughing, but he noticed that no one else was laughing. His mother looked horrified. His father had stood up and was walking closer. Wendy had her hand over her mouth. Keith was staring at Ophelia with wide eyes. The garden fell completely silent. No one moved. Everyone waited. 4 minutes felt like an eternity. Zach stood by the fire, still smiling, still certain this was just desperate fiction. Ophelia was lying. She had to be. She was pathetic and alone, and making up stories to save face. 3 minutes. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. Someone else shifted their weight. But no one spoke. 2 minutes. Zach's smile started to feel forced. What if someone actually showed up? What if she had borrowed someone's kids just to prove a point? That would be insane, but 1 minute. Ophelia stood calm and still, waiting. Her eyes were on the side gate of the garden. Then the gate opened. Aunt Raquel walked through first. She was Ruth's older sister. She lived in Savannah. Zach had not even known she was in town. And behind her, 3 small boys. They wore matching navy coats, little boots. They looked around the garden with wide, curious eyes. Then they saw Ophelia, their faces transformed. Pure joy, pure love. They screamed in unison, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy." They ran across the grass. Their small legs pumped. Their arms reached out. They crashed into Ophelia, and she dropped to her knees, catching all 3 of them. Zach's smile vanished. The beer bottle went numb in his hand. He stared at the boys, at their faces, green eyes, his exact shade of green, sharp nose, his nose, strong chin, his chin, and when they smiled up at Ophelia, deep dimples appeared in both cheeks. His dimples. Zach. Vanessa's voice cut through the roaring in his ears. Her hand gripped his arm. Her fingernails dug into his skin through his shirt. "Zach, those kids look exactly like you." The beer bottle slipped from his fingers and fell to the grass. The world tilted. Zach could not breathe, could not think, could not process what he was seeing. Ruth walked toward Ophelia and the boys. She moved slowly, like she was in a dream or a nightmare. Her hand was over her mouth. Tears were already streaming down her face. She stopped a few feet away from them, stared at the three small boys. "Ophelia," Ruth's voice cracked. Are these my grandchildren?" Ophelia stood slowly. She kept the boys close, one hand on a small shoulder, one hand holding a tiny hand. She looked at Ruth, at Martin, who had come to stand beside his wife, at the entire family gathered in shocked, frozen silence. Then Ophelia looked directly at Zach. "Yes," Ophelia said. Her voice was clear and steady. "These are your grandchildren. This is Carter, Brooks, and Hayes. They are 3.5 years old." Ruth made a sound like a sob and a gasp combined. She dropped to her knees on the cold stone patio. Her hands reached out but stopped before touching the boys, like she was afraid they were not real. 3.5 years, Ruth whispered. 3.5 years. Ophelia knelt down so she was at the boys' eye level. She spoke softly to them. "Do you remember what I told you?" Ophelia asked. "About your daddy?" The boys nodded. All three of them, their eyes wide and uncertain. "That man over there," Ophelia said gently, pointing at Zach. "That is your father. His name is Zachary. He is your daddy." Three small faces turned to look at Zach. 3 pairs of green eyes. His eyes stared at him. Carter, the boldest of the three, spoke first. "You are our daddy?" "Where were you?" The question was innocent, curious, not accusatory, but it hit Zach like a bullet to the chest. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His throat was closed. His lungs were not working. His brain had shut down. Martin stepped forward. His face was hard, serious, disappointed. He looked at Zach with an expression Zach had never seen before, like he was looking at a stranger, or worse, like he was looking at someone he was ashamed of. "Did you know about these children?" Martin asked. His voice was low and dangerous. Zach shook his head. The movement felt jerky, uncoordinated. No, I did not know." "Ophelia tried to contact you," Martin said. It was not a question. It was a statement. His mother must have told him, must have known. Zach started. His voice came out hoarse, broken. "I did not. You blocked her number," Martin continued. "You sent back her letters without opening them. You refused to speak to her. Every word was true." Zach had done all of those things. After the divorce, he blocked Ophelia's number. When she sent letters to his apartment, he wrote, "Return to sender" on every single one and dropped them back in the mail. When she came to his office, he told his assistant to call security. He wanted to move on. He did not want to deal with her, did not want to think about her, did not want any connection to his old life. And now, Wendy walked slowly toward the boys. She was crying. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at Ophelia with anguish. 4 years, Wendy said. "I missed 4 years with them. I have nephews and I did not even know they existed." "I am sorry," Ophelia said. Her voice cracked. "I did not know what to do." "Why did you not tell us?" Ruth asked. She was still on her knees, still staring at the boys like they might disappear. "Why did you not tell the family?" Ophelia's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. "I was ashamed. I was scared. Zachary told me I was boring, that I was not enough, that I was holding him back. When he left, I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I really was worthless. I thought if I told you about the babies, you would not believe me. Or you would think I was trying to trap him, or you would take his side. I could not handle that. So I stayed away." She took a shaky breath. "I moved to a smaller apartment. I worked 2 jobs. I taught during the day and did freelance bookkeeping at night after the boys were asleep. My parents helped when they could, but they are elderly and live in Florida. Mostly it was just me and my sons." Martin turned back to Zach. His face was stone. "Tell me you did not know about this. Tell me you did not ignore her when she was trying to tell you about your own children." Zach felt like he was drowning. I did not know. I swear. I did not read the letters. I did not take her calls. I just wanted to move on. So, you blocked her, Martin said. You refused to listen. You did not think she might need to tell you something important. Zach could not finish the sentence. There was no defense, no excuse. He had done exactly what his father said. That was cruel, Martin said quietly. That was irresponsible. That was the behavior of a coward, not a man. The word coward hit Zach like a physical blow. His father had never called him that before, had never looked at him with such disappointment. Vanessa stepped away from Zach. She was staring at the boys, at Ophelia, at the scene unfolding. Her face had gone pale. Her hands were shaking. What else are you hiding from me? Vanessa demanded. Her voice was shrill. What else did you lie about? I did not lie, Zach said desperately. I did not know about them. I swear. You told me she was boring, Vanessa said. You told me the divorce was normal. You told me she was the problem. But you blocked her. You refused to talk to her. That is not normal. That is not what a good person does. Vanessa. Zach reached for her, but she stepped back. No, Vanessa said. Her voice was cold now. I married you because I thought you were honest. I thought you were a good man. But you lied about who you are. She reached down and pulled her wedding ring off her finger. The 10-carat diamond caught the firelight. She threw it at Zach's feet. The ring bounced on the stone patio and rolled into the grass. I want a divorce, Vanessa said. My lawyer will contact you. She turned and walked back into the house. Moments later, they heard a car engine start. Tires on gravel. She was gone. Zach stood alone while his entire family gathered around Ophelia and the boys. Ruth was on the ground with them now, crying and laughing at the same time, trying to hug all three boys at once. Martin knelt beside his wife. He was a serious man, not given to displays of emotion, but there were tears in his eyes as he looked at his grandsons. Wendy joined them, then Keith. They introduced themselves to the boys, asked their names, told them they were their aunt and uncle. The boys were shy but polite, well-behaved. Carter answered questions. Brooks showed them his stuffed animal. Hayes stayed close to Ophelia. Zach watched all of this from 10 feet away, separate, alone, an outsider in his own family. His cousin Robert, who had been standing near Zach during the mocking, slowly edged away, joined the group around the children. No one stood with Zach. No one looked at him. No one spoke to him. He had never felt more alone in his life. Carter looked up from where Ruth was hugging him. His green eyes found Zach. He tilted his head with curiosity. Why does he look like us? Carter asked Ophelia. Because he is your father, Ophelia said gently. You have his eyes. You have his smile. You have his face. Brooks looked at Zach too. Why was he not there before? Ophelia's face showed pain. Just for a moment. Then she smoothed it away. He was away, Ophelia said carefully. But he is here now. Hayes, the quietest of the three, spoke in a small voice. Is he going to leave again? The question broke something in Zach's chest. He tried to step forward, tried to say something. But what could he say? Ophelia picked Hayes up and held him close. I do not know, baby. I do not know. Keith walked over to Zach. His face was angry, disappointed. Tell me something, Keith said. Did you know she was trying to contact you? Yes, Zach admitted. I knew she called. I knew she sent letters. And you ignored her, Keith said flatly. Yes. Why? Because I wanted to move on, Zach said. His voice sounded weak, even to himself. I did not want to deal with the past. So, you blocked her, Keith said. You made it impossible for her to tell you that you had children. You did not think. You did not care. You just ran away. I did not know about them, Zach said again. You did not want to know. Keith shot back. There is a difference. You could have answered one phone call. You could have opened one letter. But you were too selfish, too proud, too concerned with your new life to give her 5 minutes. Keith walked away, went back to his family, left Zach standing alone. Zach looked at his mother. She was laughing through her tears. She was asking the boys questions. What do you like to do? What are your favorite foods? Do you like to read? She was trying to learn everything about them, trying to make up for lost time. Zach looked at his father. Martin was holding Brooks now, showing him something on his phone, smiling. Martin almost never smiled. Zach looked at his children, 3 small boys he had never met, never knew existed. They had his face, his eyes, his genetics, but they did not know him. To them, he was a stranger, a man their mother pointed to and called Daddy, but they had no connection, no bond, no love, because Zach had not been there for any of it. He thought back, tried to calculate, 3.5 years old. That meant Ophelia got pregnant. His mind raced. When did they divorce? 3 years ago. The divorce was finalized in March. If the boys were 3.5 now, that meant Ophelia was pregnant before the divorce was final. She was pregnant, and he was serving her divorce papers. She was pregnant, and he was blocking her calls. She was pregnant, and he was sending back her letters. She was trying to tell him, and he refused to listen. Oh God! Zach felt his knees go weak. He stumbled to a chair and sat down hard, put his head in his hands. What had he done? What had he done? Ophelia stood up. She kept the boys close to her. She looked at Ruth. I should go, Ophelia said. It is late. The boys need to get to bed. No, Ruth said quickly. Please, can you stay a little longer? Can I? Can I spend more time with them? Ophelia hesitated, then nodded. A little longer. Ruth looked like she had been given the greatest gift in the world. She turned back to the boys, started asking more questions, telling them about the house, about the garden, about all the family. Martin stood and walked over to Zach. He stopped in front of his son, looked down at him with hard eyes. You need to fix this, Martin said quietly. I do not know how, Zach said. His voice was hollow. You start by taking responsibility, Martin said. You stop making excuses. You stop thinking about yourself. You think about those 3 boys who do not know their father. You think about Ophelia, who did this alone. You figure out how to be the man you should have been 3 years ago. Zach looked up at his father. I do not know if I can. Martin's expression did not soften. Then you are not the man I thought I raised. He walked away, went back to his grandsons, left Zach alone in the chair. The next 30 minutes were torture. Zach sat and watched his family fall in love with his children, watched his sons smile and laugh, watched them warm up to their grandmother and grandfather, watched them play with their aunt and uncle. And he was not part of it. He was separate, alone, the man who was not there. Finally, Ophelia checked her watch. We really need to go now. It is past their bedtime. The boys protested. They were having fun. They did not want to leave. But Ophelia was firm. She gathered their coats, helped them put their boots back on. Aunt Raquel appeared with the bag she had brought. Ruth hugged each boy, kissed their foreheads. Can I see them again? Can I please see them again? Ophelia looked at her, at the tears on Ruth's face, at the desperate hope in her eyes. Yes, Ophelia said. You can see them again. Ruth sobbed. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ophelia walked toward the side gate with the boys. Raquel followed. The entire family walked with them, saying goodbye, asking when they could visit, telling the boys they loved them. Zach stood up, walked toward the group, toward his sons. He did not know what to say, but he had to say something. Ophelia. Zach said. She stopped, turned to look at him. Her face was carefully neutral, guarded. Can we talk? Zach asked. About what? About... He gestured helplessly. About this, about them, about everything. Ophelia looked at him for a long moment. There is nothing to talk about, Zachary. You made your choice 3 years ago. I did not know, Zach said desperately. You did not want to know. Ophelia replied. There is a difference. She turned away, walked through the gate with the boys. Raquel followed. The gate closed behind them. Zach stood staring at the closed gate, at the space where his children had just been. They were gone. His family slowly dispersed, walked back into the house. No one spoke to Zach. No one looked at him. He was invisible. He walked back to his Bentley, got in, started the engine. The dashboard clock said 3:20 in the morning. He drove back to Manhattan in complete silence. No radio, no podcasts, just the sound of the engine and his own breathing. His mind kept replaying the scene. The boys running to Ophelia, their voices calling Mommy, their green eyes looking at him with confusion. Hayes asking if he was going to leave again. Zach arrived at his building in Midtown at 4 in the morning, took the elevator to the 15th floor, walked down the hallway to his penthouse. He unlocked the door, walked inside. The lights were off. The apartment was dark and silent. Zach flipped on the lights and immediately saw that something was different. Vanessa's things were gone. He walked to the living room. The painting she had bought was missing from the wall. Her magazines were gone from the coffee table. Her decorative pillows were gone from the couch. Zach walked to the bedroom, opened the closet. Empty. All of Vanessa's clothes were gone. Her shoes, her suitcases. Her side of the closet was completely bare. He walked to the bathroom. Her makeup was gone. Her skincare products, her perfume bottles, her toothbrush. Vanessa had taken everything. On the kitchen counter, Zach found a note. He picked it up with shaking hands. Zachary. The note read, "I filed for divorce this morning. My lawyer will contact you. Do not call me. Do not text me. Do not come to my office. We have nothing to talk about. I trusted you when you lied to me. I cannot be married to someone I do not trust. Vanessa." Zach put the note down, walked to the living room, sat on the couch, and for the first time in years, for the first time since he was a struggling kid in Queens, Zachary Brennan cried. He cried for the life he thought he had. The perfect image, the perfect marriage, the perfect success, all of it was gone. His wife left him. His family was ashamed of him. His reputation would be destroyed when this got out. But more than any of that, more than the money or the status or the image, he had 3 sons, 3 small boys, Carter, Brooks, and Hayes. 3 children he never knew existed. 3 children he missed the first 3.5 years of their lives. And it was his fault. All of it. Every single bit of it was his fault. He blocked Ophelia. He ignored her. He sent back her letters. He made it impossible for her to tell him. Because he was proud. Because he was selfish. Because he cared more about his new life than anything from his old life. And now he had lost everything. Zach sat in his $15 million penthouse, surrounded by expensive furniture and original artwork and floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Manhattan. And he had never felt more poor in his entire life. The sun rose over the city. Golden light streamed through the windows. It was New Year's Day. A new year. A fresh start. But for Zachary Brennan, it felt like the end of everything. His phone started buzzing. Notifications. Text messages. He picked it up with numb fingers. The first message was from his mother. "We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow." The second was from Wendy. "I cannot believe you did this. Those boys are beautiful, and you were not there. How could you?" The third was from Keith. "You need to figure out how to fix this. You need to be their father." Then his phone started ringing. A number he did not recognize. He answered without thinking. "Mr. Brennan?" A woman's voice. "This is Kelly Marshall from page 6. I am calling about reports that you have 3-year-old triplets you did not know about. Can you comment?" Zach hung up, but the phone immediately rang again. Another reporter, then another, then another. Someone at the party had leaked the story. By noon, it would be everywhere. Zach turned his phone off, sat in the silence of his empty apartment. He thought about Ophelia, pregnant and alone, going to doctor appointments by herself, finding out she was carrying 3 babies, being terrified, trying to call him, trying to tell him, and him blocking every attempt. He thought about her giving birth, an emergency C-section. She almost died. That is what Wendy said. Ophelia almost died, and he was not there. He thought about 3 newborns in the NICU, tiny and fragile, fighting to survive, and Ophelia sitting beside their incubators, alone. He thought about all the firsts he missed. First smiles, first laughs, first words, first steps, first birthdays, second birthdays, third birthdays. Gone, all of it. He could never get it back. And it was his fault. Zach stood up. He needed to do something. He needed to fix this. But how? How do you fix missing 3.5 years of your children's lives? He did not know. He had no idea. But he had to try. He walked to his laptop, opened it, searched for family lawyers in New York. If Ophelia would not talk to him, if she would not let him near the boys, then he would have to go through the courts. He found a lawyer, Diane Porter. Her website said she specialized in custody cases. She had good reviews. People said she was tough but fair. Zach called her office, left a message. It was New Year's Day. She would not be in, but he left his name and number and said it was urgent. Then he sat back and waited. The media storm hit by midday. Zach turned his phone back on and immediately regretted it. Hundreds of notifications. His social media accounts were flooded. People who had liked his perfect photo from the peninsula this morning were now leaving comments. Guess your life is not so perfect after all. You have kids you did not know about? What kind of man are you? Your poor ex-wife. She raised triplets alone while you were posting photos of champagne. The gossip sites picked it up. Page 6. TMZ, Daily Mail. Billionaire tech mogul discovers he has 3-year-old triplets. Zachary Brennan ghosted his pregnant ex-wife. From penthouse to nightmare, the fall of a self-made millionaire. Zach closed his laptop, turned off his phone again, sat in the silence. This was his life now. Public humiliation, family disappointment, and 3 sons who did not know him. He had built an empire, made hundreds of millions of dollars, achieved everything he thought mattered, and lost everything that actually did. On January 2nd, Diane Porter's office called him back. They set up a meeting for that afternoon. Zach drove to her office in Midtown, took the elevator to the 12th floor. Diane Porter was in her 50s, gray hair cut in a sharp bob, expensive suit, serious expression. She shook his hand with a firm grip and led him to her office. "Tell me everything," Diane said, sitting behind her desk. Zach told her. The divorce 3 years ago, the blocked calls, the returned letters, the New Year's party, the revelation. Diane listened without interrupting, took notes on a legal pad. When he finished, she put down her pen and looked at him. "Mr. Brennan, I am going to be very direct with you. The family court is not going to be sympathetic." "What do you mean?" Zach asked. "You blocked your ex-wife. You refused to read her correspondence. You made it impossible for her to contact you. It does not matter that you did not know about the children. You created the situation where you could not know. But I want to be their father now." Zach said, "I understand. But you need to understand the reality. You will be paying child support. A significant amount. Not just going forward. You will owe back support for the past 3.5 years. "How much?" Diane typed on her calculator. "Based on your income, the state guideline would be approximately $25,000 per month." Zach nodded. That was manageable. For 3.5 years of back support. Diane continued. "That is over $1 million. $1 million. The number hit Zach hard, not because he could not afford it. He could, easily, but because it represented 3.5 years of supporting his children. 3.5 years he owed them. 3.5 years he was not there. "Okay," Zach said quietly. "I will pay it. There is more," Diane said. "You will not get unsupervised custody right away. The court will order supervised visitation first. A social worker will be present. If those visits go well, after several months, you can move to unsupervised visitation. Eventually you might get partial custody, weekends, holidays. But Miss Hart is the primary custodial parent. She has been their only parent for their entire lives. The court will prioritize stability, so I get to see my own children when. For how long? That depends on Ms. Hart and the court. I recommend we reach out to her attorney and propose a visitation schedule. Start with short visits, once a week, 1 or 2 hours, supervised. Show the court you are serious. Show Ms. Hart you are committed." Zach felt sick. 1 or 2 hours a week, with a social worker watching, that was all he got. But it was more than he deserved. He knew that. "Okay," Zach said. "Do whatever you need to do. One more thing," Diane said. "I strongly recommend you start therapy. The court will want to see that you are taking responsibility, that you are working on yourself. It will help your case. Okay, Zach agreed. He left Diane's office feeling numb, drove back to his penthouse. The space felt too big, too empty, too much. Over the next week, the divorce papers from Vanessa arrived. Her lawyer was efficient, ruthless. They would split assets 50-50. She wanted her share of their joint accounts, her share of the investments they had made together. Zach signed everything without argument. Let her take whatever she wanted. He did not care anymore. The media attention died down after a few days. Moved on to the next scandal. But the damage was done. Zach's perfect image was shattered. People who had envied him now pitied him, or mocked him. Diane reached out to Ophelia's lawyer, proposed a visitation schedule. For 3 days, there was no response. Zach thought Ophelia might refuse, might shut him out completely. Then Diane called. Miss Hart has agreed to supervised visitation, but she has conditions. What conditions? Zach asked. First, you must complete a paternity test. It is a formality but legally required. Second, you must enroll in parenting classes. Third, you must attend therapy and provide documentation. Fourth, visits will be 1 hour, twice per week, at a family services center in Brooklyn. A social worker will be present at all times. Fifth, you will pay the back child support immediately, plus ongoing monthly support. Sixth, you will not speak negatively about Miss Hart to the children or to anyone else. And seventh, if you miss even one scheduled visit, the arrangement is terminated immediately. Zach listened to the list. Each condition was reasonable. Each one was a consequence of his actions. I agree, Zach said. To all of it. Good, Diane replied. The paternity test is scheduled for Thursday at 10 in the morning. I will send you the address. Zach hung up, looked at the calendar. Thursday was 3 days away. 3 days until he saw his sons again. He enrolled in parenting classes at a community center in Brooklyn. The next session started on Monday evening. He would be in a room with teenage parents and young couples, learning the basics of child development, things he should already know. He found a therapist, Dr. Lawrence Chen. He specialized in family issues and narcissistic patterns. His first available appointment was Tuesday afternoon. Zach took it. On Monday evening, Zach drove to Brooklyn for his first parenting class. He parked his Bentley on the street and immediately felt out of place. This was not his neighborhood, not his world. He walked into the community center, found the classroom, took a seat in the back. The other attendees were young. Most looked like they were in their early 20s. Some were teenagers. They looked at Zach with curiosity. A few recognized him, whispered to each other, took photos with their phones. Zach ignored them, sat through the class, learned about developmental milestones for children ages 0 to 5, learned about emotional regulation, about consistency and routine, about the importance of being present, things he had missed, things he needed to know. On Tuesday, Zach went to his first therapy appointment. Dr. Chen's office was in a brownstone in Park Slope. Warm, comfortable, not clinical. Dr. Chen was in his 40s, Asian American, calm demeanor, kind eyes. Why are you here? Dr. Chen asked once they were settled. Because I have to be, Zach said. It is part of the custody agreement. That is why you are physically here, Dr. Chen said. But why are you really here? Zach was silent. He had not expected that question. Dr. Chen waited, patient. Finally, Zach spoke. Because I destroyed everything that mattered, and I do not know who I am anymore. Tell me about that, Dr. Chen said. And Zach did. He talked for the full hour, about growing up poor in Queens, about the shame he felt, about building his wealth, about divorcing Ophelia because she reminded him of his past, about blocking her, about missing 3.5 years with his children. Dr. Chen listened without judgment, asked questions, drew connections. At the end of the session, Dr. Chen said something that stuck with Zach. You confused net worth with self-worth. You thought being rich made you valuable. You thought being poor made you worthless. So, you threw away anything that reminded you of being poor, including a good woman, including your own humanity. The words were true, painfully true. I will see you next week, Dr. Chen said. On Thursday morning, Zach drove to the medical clinic in Brooklyn where the paternity test was scheduled. He arrived 15 minutes early, sat in his car, His hands were shaking. At exactly 10 o'clock, Ophelia's Honda pulled into the parking lot. Zach watched as she got out, opened the back door. 3 car seats, 3 small boys. Carter climbed out first, looked around with bright, curious eyes. Brooks followed, clutching a small stuffed dog. Hayes held Ophelia's hand, shy and uncertain. They walked into the clinic. Zach followed at a distance. Inside, a nurse greeted them, led them to a private room. Zach followed. The room was small, cheerful, painted yellow. There were toys in the corner. The nurse, a young woman with dark skin and a kind smile, knelt down to the boy's level. "Hi, I am Nurse Kelly. We are going to do a very quick test today. It will not hurt at all. I am just going to use this soft cotton swab to touch the inside of your cheek. It will feel like a little tickle. That is all. Does that sound okay?" The boys looked scared. Hayes started to cry. Ophelia knelt beside them. "It is okay, babies. It will be very fast, and then we will get ice cream after. Would you like ice cream?" The boys nodded. They liked ice cream. Nurse Kelly showed them the cotton swab. "See? Very soft." She started with Carter. He opened his mouth. She rubbed the swab on the inside of his cheek. 5 seconds. Done. Carter looked surprised. That was it. That was it. Nurse Kelly said with a smile. She did Brooks next. Then Hayes. Hayes cried a little, but it was over quickly. Then she turned to Ophelia. "Your turn, Mom." Ophelia opened her mouth. The swab. 5 seconds. "Now you, Dad," Nurse Kelly said, looking at Zach. Zach sat down, opened his mouth. The swab touched the inside of his cheek. 5 seconds. "All done," Nurse Kelly said. She put all the swabs in labeled tubes, sealed them in a bag. "The results will be ready in about a week. We will call you." "Thank you," Ophelia said. She stood, gathered the boys, started to leave. Zach stood up. "Ophelia." She stopped, turned to look at him. Her face was carefully neutral. Can I talk to them? Just for a minute?" Ophelia looked at her sons, then back at Zach. She hesitated, then nodded. 1 minute. Zach knelt down so he was at the boy's eye level. His heart was pounding. "Hi," Zach said. His voice came out shaky. I am your dad." 3 pairs of green eyes stared at him, so much like his own eyes. "Where were you?" Carter asked again. The same question from the party. "I was." Zach struggled for words. "I was away, but I am here now, and I want to get to know you." "Why were you away?" Brooks asked. Zach did not know how to answer that. How do you explain to a 3-year-old that you were selfish and cruel and stupid? "I made a mistake," Zach said finally. "A big mistake. But I want to fix it. I want to be your daddy." "Are you going to leave again?" Hayes asked in a small voice. The question broke Zach's heart. "No, I promise. I am not going to leave again." Hayes did not look convinced. The minute was up. Ophelia gently touched the boy's shoulders. "Time to go get ice cream. Say goodbye." "Bye," Carter said. "Bye," Brooks echoed. Hayes said nothing, just held Ophelia's hand tighter. They left. Zach stood in the empty room. Nurse Kelly gave him a sympathetic look. "First meetings are always hard," she said. "Give it time." But Zach did not know if time would be enough. His sons did not know him, did not trust him, and he had no one to blame but himself. The visits continued, week after week after week, every Tuesday at 4 in the afternoon, every Saturday at 10 in the morning. For 2 months straight, Zachary Brennan showed up at that family services center in Brooklyn. He was never late. Not once. He set 3 alarms on his phone. He left business meetings early. He turned down investor dinners. He rearranged his entire life around 2 hours a week with 3 small boys who barely knew him. And slowly, painfully, things began to change. On the 4th visit, Carter built a tower out of blocks and actually smiled when Zach handed him the pieces. On the 6th visit, Brooks brought a book from home, a worn copy of a story about a bear who couldn't sleep. He walked up to Zach and held it out without saying a word. Zach took the book. His hands were shaking. "Can you read this to me?" Brooks asked. His voice was so quiet Zach almost didn't hear it. "Of course I can, buddy." They sat on the floor together, Brooks leaned against Zach's side, just barely, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. Zach opened the book and started reading. He stumbled over some of the words because his throat was tight and his vision was blurry. But he read the whole thing. And when he finished, Brooks looked up at him with those green eyes. Eyes that looked exactly like Zach's own eyes. "Can you read it again?" Brooks asked. Zach read it 3 more times. Hayes still kept his distance. He stayed on the other side of the room during most visits, playing alone with a set of toy trains. He watched his brothers interact with Zach, but he didn't join in. Patricia Kim, the social worker, noticed this. She made notes in her folder, but she also noted that Hayes wasn't crying anymore, wasn't hiding. He was just watching, processing, taking his time. "That's normal," Patricia told Zach after one visit. "Hayes is the most cautious of the 3. He needs more time to trust. Just keep showing up. He'll come to you when he's ready." Zach nodded. He understood. Or at least, he was trying to understand. Dr. Chen was helping him with that. The therapy sessions were getting harder. At first, they'd been surface level, talking about the logistics of visitation, about parenting techniques, about managing his emotions. But by the 6th session, Dr. Chen started digging deeper. "Tell me about your childhood," Dr. Chen said. "Why does that matter?" "Because everything matters. You don't become the man you became by accident. Something shaped you." "What was it?" Zach sat back in the leather chair. Dr. Chen's office was in a brownstone in the West Village. It had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a window that looked out onto a tree-lined street. It felt safe, which made it easier to say things Zach had never said out loud. "I grew up poor," Zach finally said. "Really poor. My dad worked for the Postal Service. My mom was a nurse. They did their best, but there were 4 of us kids and never enough money. I wore my cousin's hand-me-downs until I was 16. Other kids made fun of me, called me thrift store, called me broke boy. I hated it. I hated being poor. I hated how it felt. So I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd never be poor again. I'd be rich. I'd be successful. I'd be someone people respected." "And did you achieve that?" "Yes. I made my first million at 29. By 35, I had 300 million. So, you won." Zach was quiet for a long moment. "I thought I did." "But you didn't," Dr. Chen said. "Not really, because you were still that scared kid from Queens. You just had nicer clothes. You were still running from the same thing. Shame. The shame of being poor. The shame of not being enough. And Ophelia reminded you of that shame, didn't she?" Zach felt like he'd been punched. "Yes, she was a 2nd-grade teacher. She didn't make much money. She wore simple clothes. She was happy with small things. Homemade dinners, movie nights at home. She didn't care about impressing people. And that terrified you." "Yes, because if you stayed with her, you'd have to accept that your value isn't in your net worth. You'd have to accept that the scared poor kid from Queens is still part of you. And you weren't ready to do that." Zach put his head in his hands. "I destroyed everything because I was ashamed of myself." "Yes," Dr. Chen said simply. "And now you have to decide who you want to be. Do you want to be the man who's still running? Or do you want to be the man who stops, turns around, and faces what he's been afraid of? I want to be a good father. Then you need to accept all of yourself. The poor kid and the billionaire. The scared boy and the successful man. Until you do that, you'll always be performing. And children can sense when you're not real." These sessions stayed with Zach. He'd drive back to his penthouse afterward and sit in the silence, thinking, remembering, grieving the years he'd wasted running from himself. On the 8th visit to the family center, something shifted. Zach arrived early as always. He sat in the waiting room, scrolling through his phone without really seeing it. Then the door opened, and Ophelia walked in with the boys. Carter and Brooks ran to him immediately. "Daddy!" They didn't even wait for Ophelia to say it was okay. They just ran straight to him and wrapped their arms around his legs. Zach knelt down and hugged them back. His heart felt like it might explode. Hayes walked more slowly. He stood a few feet away, watching. Then he did something he'd never done before. He reached into his small backpack and pulled out a piece of paper. He walked up to Zach and held it out. His little hand was shaking. Zach took the paper. It was a drawing, done in crayon on white construction paper. The drawing showed a stick figure man with green eyes and 2 round circles on his cheeks. dimples. Under the man, in wobbly handwriting, someone had written a single word. Daddy. Zach stared at the drawing, his eyes filled with tears. He looked at Hayes. Did you make this for me? Hayes nodded. He didn't say anything, but he nodded. Zach's voice broke. This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. Thank you, Hayes. Thank you so much. Hayes didn't smile. He just turned and walked back to his spot by the trains. But something had changed. He'd made the first move. He'd reached out. And that meant everything. Patricia saw the whole thing. She made notes in her folder. When Ophelia came to pick up the boys 2 hours later, Patricia asked to speak with her privately. Zach waited in the hallway, holding that drawing like it was made of gold. When Ophelia came out, her face was unreadable. She gathered the boys, helped them put on their coats, and left without looking at Zach. But 2 days later, Diane Porter called him. Good news, Diane said. Patricia submitted her recommendation to the court. She's recommending unsupervised visits. Ophelia has agreed. Zach sat down hard on his couch. What does that mean? It means you can take the boys out of the center. You can pick them up from Ophelia's apartment and take them places. To the park. To museums. Wherever you want. You'll have them for 4 hours every Sunday, and you have to have them back by 6 o'clock. Not 6:15. Not 6:30. 6 o'clock exactly. Ophelia was very clear about that. I'll have them back on time, Zach said. I promise. And Zach, Diane's voice was serious. Don't mess this up. This is a huge step. If you're late even once, if there's any problem at all, Ophelia can revoke this. You need to be perfect. Do you understand? I understand. The first unsupervised visit was scheduled for the following Sunday. Zach barely slept the night before. He planned everything down to the minute. Where they'd go, what they'd eat, what time they'd need to leave to get back on time. He packed a bag with snacks, water bottles, Band-Aids, wet wipes, everything he could think of. At 9:30 on Sunday morning, he drove to Ophelia's apartment in Brooklyn. It was in a modest building on a tree-lined street, the kind of neighborhood where people knew their neighbors and kids played on the sidewalks. Nothing like the luxury high-rises Zach was used to. He parked his car. He'd sold the Bentley months ago. Now he drove a Honda Pilot. Practical, safe, good for car seats. He walked up to the building and pressed the buzzer for apartment 3B. Ophelia's voice came through the speaker. Yes. It's Zach. I'm here to pick up the boys. The door buzzed open. Zach climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The building was old but clean. The hallway smelled like someone was cooking breakfast. Bacon and coffee. Normal Sunday morning smells. He knocked on the door of apartment 3B. Ophelia opened it. She was wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired. She always looked tired. You're early, she said. I wanted to make sure I wasn't late. They're almost ready. Come in. Zach stepped inside. The apartment was small. A living room that opened into a tiny kitchen. A hallway that probably led to bedrooms. But it was warm, lived in. There were toys on the floor. Drawings taped to the refrigerator. Photographs on the walls. Photos of the boys as babies, as toddlers. Photos Zach had never seen because he wasn't there when they were taken. Carter, Brooks, Hayes, Ophelia called. Your father is here. The boys came running from the hallway. They were wearing matching blue jackets and small backpacks. Carter crashed into Zach's legs first. Brooks was right behind him. Hayes hung back a little, but he was smiling, actually smiling. Where are we going today, Daddy? Carter asked. I thought we'd go to Prospect Park. We can see the ducks and play on the playground, and maybe get ice cream after. Does that sound good? All 3 boys cheered. Ophelia pulled their backpacks off the coat rack and checked inside each one. She pulled out juice boxes, granola bars, a small first aid kit. Carter is allergic to tree nuts, she said to Zach. Not peanuts, but almonds, cashews, walnuts. If you get them any snacks, you need to check the label. I know. You told me last week. I have it written down in my phone. Brooks gets carsick if you drive too fast or take sharp turns. Keep the speed steady and crack a window. Got it. Hayes doesn't like loud noises. If there are fireworks or sirens or anything like that, he'll get scared. Just stay calm and tell him he's safe. I understand. Ophelia knelt down in front of the boys. She checked each of their jacket zippers, smoothed down their hair. kissed each of them on the forehead. "Be good for your father," she said. "Listen to what he says. I'll see you at 6 o'clock tonight, okay?" "Okay, Mommy," Carter said. Brooks hugged her tight. Hayes did too. Then they turned and looked at Zach with bright, expectant faces. "Ready, Daddy," Carter announced. The drive to Prospect Park took 20 minutes. Zach kept the speed steady, just like Ophelia said. He cracked the back windows. The boys chatted in the back seat, talking over each other about the ducks they were going to see and the swings they were going to swing on. Zach listened to their voices and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. Not the fake peace that came from posting a perfect photo online or closing a big deal. Real peace that came from knowing he was exactly where he was supposed to be. They arrived at the park just after 10. It was a beautiful March morning. Cold, but sunny. Families were everywhere. Parents pushing strollers. Kids riding bikes. Dogs chasing tennis balls. Zach helped the boys out of the car, and they all held hands crossing the street. Carter on his right. Brooks on his left. Hayes holding Brooks's other hand. They walked toward the lake. The water was calm and gray. Ducks floated near the shore, dipping their heads under the water looking for food. "Look, Daddy, there's so many ducks," Carter said. "What kind are they?" Brooks asked. Zach looked at the ducks. He had no idea. "I think they're mallards. See the green heads on some of them? Those are the males. Why are the males green?" Hayes asked quietly. Zach was surprised. It was the first time Hayes had asked him a direct question. To attract the females. The brighter colors help them stand out. Why do they need to stand out? So the female ducks will notice them and want to be their mate. "Oh," Hayes said. He thought about this for a moment. Do people do that too? Zach almost laughed. Sort of. People try to impress each other in different ways. They stood by the lake for a while, watching the ducks. Then Carter got bored and wanted to go to the playground. They walked across the park to the big playground near. The long meadow. It was crowded with kids. Swings and slides and climbing structures. The boys took off running the second they saw it. For the next hour, Zach chased his sons around the playground. He pushed them on the swings. He caught them at the bottom of the slides. He helped Hayes climb up the ladder to the top of the jungle gym. He played tag with Carter, even though he was wearing dress shoes and a coat that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He didn't care. He ran until he was out of breath. He laughed until his sides hurt. And when Brooks fell and scraped his knee, Zach was right there. He pulled out the first aid kit from the backpack. He cleaned the scrape with a wet wipe. He put a Band-Aid on it. He kissed the top of Brooks's head and told him he was very brave. Brooks looked up at him with those green eyes. "Thanks, Daddy." 2 words. But they meant everything. At noon, they sat under a tree and ate the snacks Ophelia had packed. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, apple slices, cheese crackers. The boys ate quickly, talking with their mouths full about the playground and the ducks and whether they could come back next week. "Can we, Daddy?" Carter asked. "Can we come back next week? If your mom says it's okay, then yes. We can come every week." Hayes looked at Zach. "Will you really be here every week?" The question hit Zach right in the chest. "Yes, I promise. Every week. I'm not going anywhere." Hayes nodded slowly. "Okay." After lunch, they walked to the ice cream truck near the park entrance. Zach let each boy choose a flavor. Carter got chocolate. Brooks got vanilla. Hayes got strawberry. They sat on a bench together, 3 small boys with ice cream all over their faces, and Zach thought about all the Sunday afternoons he'd missed. All the ice cream trips that should have happened but didn't. All the scraped knees he should have bandaged. All the stories he should have read. He couldn't get those back. They were gone. But he had this. He had right now. And he had next Sunday. And the Sunday after that. And if he was consistent, if he kept showing up, maybe eventually it would be enough. At 5:15, Zach checked his watch. They needed to leave. Ophelia said 6 o'clock and he was going to make sure they were there at 5:55. Not 6. Not 6:05. Early. "Okay, guys, time to head back to Mommy's." The boys groaned. They didn't want to leave. But Zach was firm. He'd learned in his parenting classes that consistency and clear boundaries were important. They walked back to the car. Zach buckled each boy into their car seat. He checked the straps twice to make sure they were tight. The drive back to Brooklyn was quieter. The boys were tired. Brooks fell asleep. Hayes stared out the window. Carter talked quietly about the ducks. Zach pulled up outside Ophelia's building at 5:47, 13 minutes early. He helped the boys out of the car and walked them up to the 3rd floor. He knocked on the door. Ophelia opened it. She looked surprised. "You're early." "I didn't want to be late." The boys ran inside, talking all at once. "Mommy, we saw so many ducks. Daddy pushed me really high on the swing. I got strawberry ice cream. Brooks fell, but Daddy put a Band-Aid on." Ophelia knelt down and hugged them. She looked at Brooks's knee, checking the Band-Aid. Then she looked up at Zach. Her expression was unreadable. "Thank you for bringing them home on time." "Of course." She stood up. The boys ran to their room to put away their backpacks. Ophelia stepped into the hallway and closed the door most of the way so the boys couldn't hear. "Zach," she said quietly, "they're happy when they come back from seeing you. I want you to know that. They talk about you all week. They ask when they're going to see Daddy again. It's good. They need this." Something in Zach's chest cracked open. "Thank you. Thank you for letting me see them. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right. You don't. But they deserve a father. So I'm trying." She started to close the door. Zach wanted to say more. He wanted to tell her he was sorry, that he'd been going to therapy, that he was changing, that maybe someday they could be a family again. But before he could say anything, the door closed gently. Zach walked back down the stairs and got in his car. He sat there for a long moment, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Then he drove home to his penthouse, the same penthouse where he'd celebrated his divorce from Ophelia 3 years ago, the same penthouse where he'd brought Vanessa and pretended to be happy, the same penthouse that cost $15 million and felt completely empty. He walked inside. The silence was crushing. 5,200 square feet of marble and glass, and nothing that mattered. He walked through the living room to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Manhattan spread out below him, millions of lights, millions of people, and he felt completely alone. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Ruth, the boys look so happy in the photos you sent. I'm so proud of you for showing up. Keep going. Love you." Zach sat down on his couch. He pulled up the photos on his phone, pictures he'd taken at the park. Carter on the swings, Brooks with his ice cream, Hayes standing by the lake looking at the ducks, 3 beautiful boys with green eyes and dimples, his sons, his flesh and blood, 3.5 years old, and he'd only known them for 3 months. He opened his email. There was a message from Diane Porter. The subject line said, "Custody update." He opened it. "Zach, good news. Based on Patricia's recommendation and Ophelia's feedback, the court is willing to expand your visitation. Starting next month, you can have the boys every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Additionally, you can have them 1 full weekend per month, Friday evening through Sunday evening. This is contingent on continued consistency and cooperation. Don't mess this up. Diane." A full weekend. Zach read the email 3 times. He could have his sons for an entire weekend. He could give them breakfast, put them to bed, wake up with them in the morning, do all the normal father things he should have been doing for 3.5 years. But where would they sleep? This penthouse wasn't set up for children. It was full of expensive art and glass tables and sharp corners. It was a showroom, not a home. Zach looked around the space he'd been so proud of, the space that was supposed to prove he'd made it, that he was successful, that he'd escaped his poor childhood and become someone important. It was all garbage. The next morning, Zach called a realtor, not one from his own company, someone independent. He gave them clear instructions. "I need to sell this penthouse. I don't care about getting top dollar. I just need it done fast. And I need to buy something else. A house in Brooklyn, near Prospect Park, bedrooms, a yard, something that feels like a home." The realtor was surprised. "Mr. Brennan, your penthouse is worth at least $15 million. Are you sure you want to sell?" "I'm sure." "How fast can we move?" "If you're willing to take a reasonable offer, probably 30 days. Do it." Within 2 weeks, Zach had an offer. $12 million. $3 million less than what the place was worth. He accepted immediately. And he found a house, a brownstone in Park Slope, 4 bedrooms, a small backyard, A tree-lined street. 2.5 million. He paid cash. The moving process was surreal. Packing up the penthouse that had represented everything he thought he wanted. Most of the furniture he donated. The expensive art went into storage. He kept almost nothing. He wanted to start fresh. The brownstone needed work. Paint. New floors. Child-proofing. Zach hired contractors and supervised every detail. He had one bedroom painted light blue. He bought 3 small beds, 3 small dressers, shelves for books and toys. He had glow-in-the-dark stars put on the ceiling. He bought stuffed animals and puzzles and building blocks. Ruth came to see the house before it was finished. She walked through each room, touching the walls, looking out the windows. When she got to the boy's bedroom, she stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then she turned to Zach with tears in her eyes. "This is who you're supposed to be," she said. "This is the son I raised. I'm so proud of you." Zach hugged his mother and cried on her shoulder like he was 8 years old again. The house was ready by late April. Zach moved in with almost nothing. A bed, a couch, a kitchen table, basics. The boys' room was fully furnished and ready, waiting. The first full weekend visit was scheduled for the first weekend in May. Zach picked the boys up on Friday evening at 6. Ophelia had packed bags for each of them. Pajamas, clothes for Saturday and Sunday, their toothbrushes, favorite stuffed animals. She went through the instructions again. Bedtime is 8 o'clock. They need baths first. Carter doesn't like getting water in his eyes, so you have to be careful. Brooks needs his stuffed dog or he can't sleep. Hayes needs a nightlight. They can have one small snack before bed, but nothing with sugar, or they'll be up all night. "I've got it all written down," Zach assured her. "And if there are any problems at all, you call me immediately. I don't care if it's 2 in the morning. I will." Ophelia knelt down in front of the boys. She hugged each one tightly. "You're going to stay at Daddy's house tonight and tomorrow night. Then I'll pick you up on Sunday. Okay? You're going to have so much fun. Will you miss us, Mommy?" Hayes asked. "Of course I'll miss you, but I'll see you in 2 days. That's not so long." The boys hugged her one more time. Then they followed Zach out to the car. Ophelia stood in the doorway watching until they drove away. Zach could see her in the rearview mirror. She looked worried. He didn't blame her. The drive to Park Slope took 25 minutes. The boys were excited, asking questions about Daddy's new house. "What does it look like? Do you have a yard? Can we play outside?" "You'll see in a few minutes," Zach said. When they pulled up in front of the brownstone, the boys pressed their faces to the windows. "This is your house, Daddy?" Carter asked. "This is our house," Zach corrected. "You have your own room here." He helped them out of the car and carried their bags up the steps. He unlocked the front door and they all went inside. The boys looked around with wide eyes. It wasn't fancy like Zach's old penthouse, but it was warm, comfortable, real. "Can we see our room?" Brooks asked. Zach led them upstairs. He opened the door to the blue bedroom. 3 small beds lined up against the wall, shelves full of books and toys, a toy box in the corner, and on the ceiling, glow-in-the-dark stars. The boys ran inside. They jumped on the beds. They opened the toy box and pulled out trucks and blocks and puzzles. They explored every corner of the room like it was a magical kingdom. "Is this really ours?" Hayes asked. His voice was full of wonder. "Really yours," Zach said. "Whenever you're here, this is your room." That night, Zach made dinner. He wasn't a good cook. He'd eaten at expensive restaurants for years, but barely knew how to boil water. He made spaghetti from a jar. The noodles were a little overcooked, and the sauce was too watery, but the boys didn't complain. They ate at the kitchen table, sauce all over their faces, talking about the stars on their ceiling and asking if they could sleep with the light off so they could see them glow. After dinner came bath time. This was harder than Zach expected. He filled the tub. He helped the boys undress. He got water everywhere. Carter complained when soap got near his eyes. Brooks dropped his toy boat and it went down the drain. Hayes didn't want to wash his hair, but they got through it. Zach wrapped each boy in a towel. He helped them into their pajamas. He brushed their teeth. All the normal parent things that should have been routine by now but felt brand new and terrifying. At 8 o'clock, he tucked them into their beds. He read them stories, 3 books each because they all wanted different ones. His voice was hoarse by the time he finished. He turned off the light. The glow in the dark stars appeared on the ceiling. The boys went quiet, staring up at the stars. "Daddy," Brooks whispered. "Yeah, buddy? Thank you for the stars." "You're welcome." Zach sat in the rocking chair in the corner of the room, waiting for them to fall asleep. It took a while. They whispered to each other. They giggled. They asked for water. But eventually, one by one, they drifted off. Zach watched his 3 sons sleeping, their small faces peaceful in the dim glow of the nightlight, their breathing slow and steady. He thought about Ophelia doing this alone for 3.5 years. Bedtime routines every single night. Bath time battles. Story time. Tucking them in. Comforting them when they had nightmares. All of it. Alone. While he was at business dinners. Posting photos on Instagram. Pretending to be happy with Vanessa. He left the room quietly and went downstairs. He sat on his couch in the dark and cried. For what he'd lost. For what he'd thrown away. For the man he'd been and the father he should have been. Around 2 in the morning he heard footsteps on the stairs. Small, hesitant footsteps. Then a voice. "Daddy." Zach sat up. Hayes was standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding his stuffed rabbit. His eyes were red. "What's wrong, buddy? Did you have a bad dream?" Hayes nodded. He was crying. Zach went to him. He knelt down. "Can I hug you?" Hayes nodded again. Zach wrapped his arms around his son. Hayes buried his face in Zach's shoulder and cried. Zach held him, rocking back and forth, whispering that everything was okay, that he was safe, that Daddy was here. After a while, Hayes stopped crying. He pulled back and looked at Zach. "I miss Mommy." "I know. That's okay. It's okay to miss Mommy. We'll see her on Sunday. That's only 2 more sleeps. Will you stay with me until I fall asleep?" "Of course." Zach carried Hayes back upstairs. He laid him in his bed and pulled the covers up. He sat in the rocking chair and held Hayes' hand until the little boy fell asleep again. Zach stayed there the rest of the night, watching his sons, making sure they were okay, being present, being the father he should have been all along. Saturday morning came too early. The boys woke up at 6:30. Zach was exhausted, but they were full of energy. He made them breakfast, scrambled eggs that were too dry and toast that was slightly burned. They didn't care. They ate everything and asked if they could play in the backyard. The backyard was small but fenced in. Zach sat on the back steps with his coffee, watching Carter, Brooks, and Hayes run around. They found sticks and pretended they were swords. They dug in the dirt looking for worms. They laughed and shouted and played. Normal kid stuff. The kind of stuff Zach had missed for 3.5 years. His phone rang. It was Keith, his brother. "Hey," Keith said. "Mom told me you have the boys this weekend. How's it going?" "It's going," Zach said. "I didn't sleep much. Hayes had a nightmare, and I'm a terrible cook, but they seem happy. That's what matters. Listen, Wendy and I were thinking about coming by tomorrow. Is that okay? We'd like to see the boys. Spend some time with them." "Yeah, that'd be great. Come by around noon. We'll be there." That afternoon, Zach took the boys to the Brooklyn Children's Museum. They spent hours there, looking at exhibits, playing in the interactive areas, learning about science and culture and history. The boys asked a million questions. Zach answered as many as he could and said, "I don't know, let's find out for the rest." They got dinner at a pizza place nearby. The boys got cheese pizza cut into squares, which was apparently very important. Zach learned that triangles were unacceptable. Only squares. This was the kind of thing a father should know. He added it to the mental list of things he was learning about his sons. That night, bedtime went a little smoother. Baths were still chaotic, but less so. Storytime was quicker because the boys were exhausted. They fell asleep fast, and no one woke up with nightmares. Zach sat in the living room and called Dr. Chen. They had a standing agreement that Zach could call if he needed to talk, even on weekends. "How's it going?" Dr. Chen asked. "It's hard," Zach admitted. "I'm exhausted. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. But they're here, in my house, asleep upstairs, my sons, and I can't believe I almost missed this. I can't believe I threw this away before it even started." "You're grieving," Dr. Chen said. "That's normal. You're grieving what you lost. But don't let that grief stop you from being present now. Be where your feet are. Right now, in this moment, you have them. Focus on that." You're right. And Zach, you're doing better than you think. The fact that you're overwhelmed and exhausted means you're actually doing the work. Parenting is supposed to be hard. If it were easy, it wouldn't matter. Sunday morning, Zach made pancakes. They were lumpy and misshapen, but the boys covered them in syrup and ate them anyway. At noon, Keith and Wendy arrived. The boys were shy at first, but their aunt and uncle were patient. Wendy brought coloring books. Keith brought a soccer ball. They all went to the backyard. Keith taught the boys how to kick the ball. Wendy sat on the steps with Zach and watched. They're beautiful, Wendy said, and they're warming up to you. I can tell. It's going to take time. That's okay. You have time. You're not going anywhere, right? I'm not going anywhere, Zach said firmly. I'm going to be here every single week for the rest of my life. Wendy smiled. Then you'll be fine. At 5 o'clock, it was time to take the boys back to Ophelia. Zach helped them pack their bags. They were sad to leave but excited to see their mom. He loaded them into the car and drove back to Brooklyn. He walked them up to Ophelia's apartment. The boys were talking over each other, telling their mom about the stars on the ceiling in the museum and Uncle Keith teaching them soccer. Ophelia listened to every word. She hugged them tight. Then she looked at Zach. Thank you, she said, for taking care of them. Of course. Can I talk to you for a minute? Ophelia hesitated, then nodded. She told the boys to go wash their hands for dinner. When they were out of earshot, she turned to Zach. What is it? I just wanted to say thank you for trusting me with them. I know how hard that must be, but I promise I'm going to keep showing up. I'm not going to disappear. I'm not going to let them down. Ophelia studied his face. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then she spoke quietly. I believe you. 2 words. But they meant everything. The weeks turned into months. Spring turned into summer. Zach's routine became solid. Every Sunday with the boys. 1 full weekend per month. He never missed. He was never late. He rearranged his entire life around them. His business suffered a little. He stepped back from the CEO role at his company, taking a chairman position that required less day-to-day involvement. Some of his investors complained. Some board members pushed back. Zach didn't care. My children come first, he told them. If that's a problem, find a new chairman. They didn't find a new chairman. Zach also started making other changes. He sold his yacht. He'd bought it 2 years ago and used it exactly once. It was just another status symbol, another thing to post on Instagram. He didn't need it. He sold it for $8 million and donated half to a literacy nonprofit that Ophelia had mentioned once. The rest he put in trust funds for Carter, Brooks, and Hayes. He stopped posting on social media entirely. He deleted Instagram, deleted Twitter, deleted everything. He didn't need people to see his life anymore. He just needed to live it. His mother noticed the changes. So did his father. At a family dinner in July, Martin pulled Zach aside. I'm proud of you, son, Martin said. I know I was hard on you at that New Year's party, but you've proved me wrong. You're not a coward. You're a man, a good father. Zach's throat got tight. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Keep going. Those boys need you. I know. And by the way, Martin added, your mother and I are taking them to the Bronx Zoo next Saturday. We cleared it with Ophelia already. We want to spend time with our grandsons. That's great, Dad. They'll love that. You should come too, if you want. I want, Zach said. So Zach started spending time with his sons alongside his parents. His siblings joined too. The boys got to know their grandparents, their aunt, their uncle, their cousins. They became part of the family they should have been part of from the beginning. In September, Carter, Brooks, and Hayes started pre-K. Zach went to the orientation with Ophelia. They sat together in the tiny classroom chairs while the teacher explained the curriculum and the schedule and the expectations. Are you two together? Another parent asked, seeing them sitting side by side. No, Ophelia said quickly. We're just co-parenting. The other parent looked confused, but didn't push it. After the orientation, Zach walked Ophelia to her car. Thank you for including me in this, he said. I know you didn't have to. They're your sons too. You should be part of their education. Can I ask you something? Ophelia tensed. What? Are you happy? She looked surprised. What kind of question is that? I just mean, are you doing okay? Are you seeing anyone? Do you have support? Ophelia was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke carefully. I'm doing fine, Zach. I have friends. I have my parents. I have a good therapist. And yes, I'm seeing someone. The words hit Zach like a punch. Oh, his name is Thomas. He's a librarian. We've been dating for about 4 months. He's kind. He's patient. He's good with the boys. That's great, Zach managed. I'm happy for you. Are you? I mean, I wish things were different. I wish I could go back and be the man I should have been. But I can't. So yeah, I'm happy you found someone good. You deserve that. Ophelia studied his face. Thank you for saying that. Can I ask one more thing? She sighed. What? Is there any chance ever that you and I could try again? That we could be a family? Ophelia's face hardened. No, Zach, there's no chance. I don't love you anymore. I did once. I loved you so much, it almost destroyed me when you left. But that love is dead. You killed it. And it's not coming back. I understand. I'm glad you're being a good father. I'm glad the boys are building a relationship with you. But you and I will never be together. Ever. You need to accept that and move on. Zach nodded. He felt like he was being torn in half. But he understood. I'll accept it. I'm sorry. I won't bring it up again. Good. She got in her car and drove away. Zach stood in the parking lot for a long time, watching her taillights disappear. That night, he talked to Dr. Chen about it. I still love her, Zach admitted. I know I don't deserve her. I know I destroyed what we had. But I still love her. And knowing she's with someone else, that she's happy with someone else, it's killing me. That's grief, Dr. Chen said. You're grieving the relationship you could have had if you'd made different choices. That's painful, but you need to let it go. Ophelia has moved on. You need to respect that. And you need to move on too. How? By focusing on what you do have. You have 3 incredible sons. You have a relationship with them that's growing stronger every day. You have your family back. You have a second chance at being a good man. That's more than most people get after making the mistakes you made. Don't waste it by mourning what you can't have. Be grateful for what you do have. Zach knew Dr. Chen was right, but it still hurt. October brought parent-teacher conferences. Zach went to Carter's first. The teacher was a young woman named Miss Amanda. She smiled when Zach walked in. Mr. Brennan, thank you for coming. Carter is doing wonderfully. He's curious, engaged, and kind to the other students. You should be very proud. I am, Zach said. But his mother deserves the credit. She raised him. Well, he talks about you a lot. He's always telling the class about things his daddy taught him. Really? Oh, yes. Last week we were talking about birds and Carter told everyone that mallard ducks have green heads to attract mates. He said his daddy told him that. Zach felt his chest tighten. He remembered that conversation at Prospect Park, the very first unsupervised visit. After the conference, Zach walked out into the hallway and ran directly into Ophelia. She was coming out of Brooks's conference. Oh, sorry, she said. No, I'm sorry. How did Brooks's conference go? Good. Really good. He's reading above grade level. How was Carter's? Great. He's doing well. They stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then Ophelia spoke. Zach, I need to tell you something. Okay. Thomas is going to meet the boys next weekend. We've been dating long enough that I think it's time. I wanted to let you know so it's not a surprise. Zach felt like he'd been stabbed, but he kept his face neutral. Okay. Thanks for telling me. I hope that's okay. It's fine. You have every right to introduce them to whoever you're dating. He's a good man. I think the boys will like him. I'm sure they will. Ophelia looked at him carefully. Are you really okay with this? No, Zach wanted to say. I'm not okay. It's killing me. But instead he said, I'm fine. I want you to be happy, Ophelia. If Thomas makes you happy, then I'm glad. Thank you. She walked away. Zach stood in the empty hallway of the pre-K building and felt more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. That weekend, Zach picked up the boys for their Sunday visit. When he arrived at Ophelia's apartment, there was a man there. He was tall, Asian, wearing glasses and a cardigan. He looked kind. He looked like exactly the type of man who would be patient and good with children. Zach, Ophelia said, this is Thomas. Thomas extended his hand. "Nice to meet you. Ophelia's told me a lot about you." Zach shook his hand. His grip was firm, but not aggressive. "Nice to meet you too." The boys were shy around Thomas at first, but he was good with them. He asked them about school. He complimented the drawing Hayes had made. He was genuine, warm. Everything Zach should have been 3.5 years ago. Zach took the boys to the park like always, but the whole time, all he could think about was Thomas in Ophelia's apartment. Thomas making her laugh. Thomas being patient and kind. Thomas being the man Zach wasn't. When he brought the boys back that evening, Thomas was still there. He'd made dinner. The apartment smelled like garlic and herbs. The boys ran inside talking about the playground. Thomas listened with genuine interest. Zach said goodbye and left quickly. He drove home and sat in his empty house and felt the weight of everything he'd lost. Dr. Chen's words echoed in his mind. Focus on what you have, not what you lost. But it was hard. So hard. November came. Thanksgiving. Ruth invited everyone to her house in Greenwich, including Ophelia and the boys. And, Ruth mentioned casually on the phone, Ophelia asked if she could bring Thomas. I said yes. I hope that's okay with you. It's fine, Mom. It wasn't fine. But what choice did he have? Thanksgiving Day arrived. Zach drove to his mother's house early to help set up. His siblings were already there. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie. At 2 o'clock, Ophelia arrived with the boys and Thomas. The boys ran inside shouting for Grandma and Grandpa. Thomas followed, carrying a pie he'd made. Homemade apple pie with a lattice crust. Everyone was kind to Thomas. Because he was kind. He helped in the kitchen. He played with the boys. He made conversation with Martin about history. He complimented Ruth's cooking. He was perfect. Zach watched from across the room and felt like an outsider in his own family. At dinner, they all sat around the big table. Ruth insisted on going around and having everyone say what they were grateful for. Martin went first. I'm grateful for my family. All of us together, under one roof, including my 3 grandsons, who I'm getting to know more every day. Ruth went next. I'm grateful for second chances. I'm grateful that our family is healing. I'm grateful for forgiveness. Wendy said she was grateful for her children and her health. Keith said he was grateful for his wife and his job. Then it was Ophelia's turn. She held Hayes' hand and spoke quietly. I'm grateful for my boys. I'm grateful for the family that supported me. I'm grateful for Thomas and the kindness he's brought into my life. And I'm grateful that Carter, Brooks, and Hayes have their father in their lives now. That's something I always wanted for them. Thomas went next. He was clearly nervous, being new to the family. I'm grateful that Ophelia has welcomed me into her life. And I'm grateful to be here with all of you. Thank you for including me. Then, it was Zach's turn. Everyone looked at him. He cleared his throat. I'm grateful for my sons, Zach said. His voice was rough. I'm grateful that I get to be their father, even though I don't deserve it. I'm grateful to Ophelia for giving me that chance. And I'm grateful to this family for not giving up on me when I gave you every reason to. The table was quiet. Ruth wiped her eyes. Martin nodded. After dinner, Zach helped clean up in the kitchen. Ophelia was there too, washing dishes. They worked in silence for a while. Then Ophelia spoke. That was a nice thing you said. At the table. I meant it. I know. Thomas seems like a good man. He is. The boys like him. Yes, they do. Zach dried a plate and put it in the cabinet. I want you to know something, Ophelia. I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to make this difficult. If you and Thomas get serious, if you decide to marry him, I won't fight it. I'll support whatever makes you happy and whatever's best for the boys. Ophelia stopped washing and looked at him. Thank you. That means a lot. I'm just trying to be a better man than I was. You are, she said quietly. You are a better man. It was the kindest thing she'd said to him in years. And it gave him a small, fragile piece of hope. Not hope that they'd get back together, but hope that maybe, eventually, they could co-parent peacefully. That maybe they could be friends. That maybe they could both move forward. December arrived. The first snowfall came early that year. The boys had never really seen snow before. They were fascinated. Zach took them to Prospect Park, and they built a snowman. A lopsided, imperfect snowman that Carter insisted needed 5 sticks for arms because snowmen should have extra arms for hugging. They threw snowballs. They made snow angels. They came home with red cheeks and frozen fingers and huge smiles. That night, after bath time and story time and tucking them in, Hayes said something that made Zach's heart stop. "Daddy?" "Yeah, buddy. I'm glad you're here now." "Me too, buddy. Me too." The week before Christmas, Ophelia called Zach. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. "Okay, what is it?" "Thomas proposed." I said yes. "We're getting engaged." Zach felt like the floor dropped out from under him. "Oh, wow. Congratulations." "Thank you. We're not setting a date yet. We want to take it slow, especially with the boys. But I wanted you to know. I appreciate you telling me. And Zach, I need to know that you're okay with this. I need to know that you're not going to make this difficult." Every fiber of Zach's being wanted to scream that he wasn't okay, that it was killing him, that he still loved her. But he didn't say any of that. "I'm okay with it," he said. "I meant what I said at Thanksgiving. I want you to be happy. If Thomas makes you happy, then I'm genuinely glad. Thank you." They hung up. Zach sat on his couch in the dark and cried. He cried for the woman he loved and lost. He cried for the marriage he destroyed. He cried for the life they could have had if he hadn't been so stupid and proud and broken. But when he was done crying, he got up. He washed his face. He called Dr. Chen. "She's getting married," Zach said, "to someone else, and I have to be okay with it." "Yes, you do," Dr. Chen said gently. "And you will be. Not today, maybe not next month, but eventually. You're grieving. Let yourself grieve, but don't let it destroy you. You have 3 sons who need you to be strong. Focus on them." "I will." "And Zach," Dr. Chen added, "this is part of consequences. You made choices. Those choices had results. Some of those results are permanent. Ophelia moving on is one of them. You can accept it and grow, or you can resist it and stay stuck. Which do you want?" "I want to grow." "Then grow. Be the man your sons need. Be the man you should have been all along. That's how you honor what you lost. Not by trying to get it back, but by becoming better." Zach thought about those words for days. Be the man your sons need. Be the man you should have been all along. On Christmas morning, Zach woke up in his brownstone. The boys were coming over at noon to exchange presents. He'd bought them carefully chosen gifts, books, educational toys, things that would last. He'd learned that the best gifts weren't expensive, they were thoughtful. At noon, Ophelia dropped them off. Thomas was with her. They were wearing matching scarves. They looked happy. It hurt to see, but Zach smiled. "Merry Christmas," he said. "Merry Christmas," Ophelia replied. The boys ran inside. Zach and Ophelia exchanged the gifts the boys had for each other. She gave him a bag of wrapped presents the boys had made at school. He gave her the support check for the month plus extra for Christmas. "Thank you," she said. "Of course." She hesitated. Then she spoke. "Zach, thank you for being so gracious about Thomas. I know this isn't easy for you. I'm trying, I can tell. And I want you to know that I do see the changes you've made. I see how you show up for the boys, how you've rearranged your life for them, how you've become the father they deserve. I'm proud of you." Those 4 words, "I'm proud of you," from Ophelia's mouth. They meant more than any business deal, any amount of money, any social media praise ever could. "Thank you," Zach said. "That means everything." She left. Zach went inside and spent Christmas Day with his sons. They opened presents. They played with new toys. They watched a Christmas movie. They ate pizza for lunch because Zach still couldn't cook a proper Christmas dinner. And it was perfect. Not the Christmas Zach had imagined 3 years ago when he was married to Vanessa and posting perfect photos online, but real, honest, full of love. That night, after the boys went to sleep, Zach sat in his living room and thought about the year, about everything he'd lost and everything he'd gained. He'd lost Ophelia, lost any chance of a future with her. That was permanent. That was the consequence of his choices. But he'd gained his sons, gained a real relationship with them, gained the chance to be their father. He pulled out his phone and looked at photos from the day. Carter holding up the book Zach had given him. Brooks building with his new blocks. Hayes asleep on the couch with his new stuffed elephant. These were the moments that mattered, not the ones he posted online for strangers to see. The real ones, the quiet ones, the ones that would never be famous but would be remembered forever by three small boys who were learning to trust their father. Zach made a decision that night. He would stop mourning what he lost. He would stop wishing for a different past. He would accept reality. Ophelia was marrying someone else. That was okay. She deserved happiness. And Zach would support her, genuinely, because that's what good men do. And he would focus everything he had on being the best father he could be to Carter, Brooks, and Hayes. He would show up. He would be consistent. He would be present. He would love them fiercely and protect them always. That was his purpose now. Not building wealth, not collecting status symbols, not proving he'd escaped his past, just being a good father. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Zachary Brennan learned what so many of us learned too late, that the things we chase, the status, the money, the image, they mean nothing if we lose the people who matter. He spent years building an empire while destroying a family. He confused his net worth with his self-worth. And when he finally woke up, 3.5 years had already passed. 3.5 years he could never get back. But here is the truth about consequences. Some of them are permanent. Zach will never have those first years with his sons. He will never be the father who was there from the beginning. He will never have Ophelia's love again. Those doors are closed forever. That is the price of pride. That is the cost of running from yourself. But consequences do not have to be the end of the story. Zach could have given up. He could have blamed Ophelia. He could have walked away again. Instead, he showed up. Week after week, month after month, he proved through his actions that he had changed. Not with grand gestures, not with money, but with consistency, with presence, with love. And that is the lesson here. Redemption is not a moment. It is a lifetime of better choices. It is showing up even when it is hard. It is accepting that you cannot change your past, but you can change your future. It is understanding that being a father, being a good person, is not about where you start. It is about what you do with the time you have left. So let me ask you something. Is there someone in your life you have been ignoring? Someone whose calls you have not returned? Someone you have pushed away because they remind you of a version of yourself you are ashamed of? Do not make Zach's mistake. Do not wait until it is too late. Pick up the phone. Read the message. Open the letter. Because the most important conversations are often the ones we are most afraid to have. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own life and the choices you are making, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button, not for me, but because this story deserves to reach someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is letting pride destroy something precious. Someone who is not answering the calls they should answer. Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever had to earn back trust you broke? Have you ever discovered consequences you did not see coming? What did you learn? I read every single comment and your stories matter. And if you have not subscribed to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, what are you waiting for? This channel is not about fairy tales. It is about real stories with real lessons. Stories that hold up a mirror and ask, what kind of person am I becoming? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because every single week we bring you stories that will make you feel, think, and grow. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is chasing success at the expense of everything else. Someone who needs to remember that time is the one thing money cannot buy. Zachary Brennan has 3 sons now. He sees them every week. He tucks them in. He reads them stories. He shows up. It is not the life he imagined. It is not perfect, but it is real. And after everything he threw away, it is more than he deserves. Remember, you can change your future, but you cannot erase your past. You can become better, but you cannot undo what you destroyed. The question is, what will you do with that truth? Will you let it paralyze you? Or will you let it transform you? I will see you in the next story. Until then, show up for the people who matter. Answer the calls. Read the letters. Be present before it is too late, because some consequences last forever, and regret is the heaviest burden you will ever carry. This is Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, where every story has a lesson, and every lesson can change a life.